Conor Mcgregor is one of the most recognizable fighters in MMA, and it's easy to see why. Conor was once the king of the octagon, the master of mental warfare. At one point in time, he even took the MMA world by storm. With a rush to stardom that was filled with entertainment, unforgettable moments, and his personality and commitment to the sport is what drew fans worldwide. Known for his entertaining trash talk and press conferences, Conor wasn't just another loudmouth, cocky fighter. He was an entertainer, a showman who backed up his word with brutal knockouts. He became the first UFC fighter to hold 2 belts simultaneously in 2 different weight classes. Conor even had a habit of predicting the outcome of his fight, practically speaking his victories into existence. And he holds the record for the biggest pay-per-view draw in UFC history. His personality, his obsession with the sport, and his larger-than-life persona is what made him the most famous MMA fighter in the world. However, it seems like the Conor who was once razor-sharp in his speech and obsessed with the sport is long gone. And it's safe to say that he has become everything he once ridiculed, a shell of his former self. And the years of hard work Conor has put into building his reputation and legacy is just going to waste. But with great power comes great responsibility, or in Conor's case, great consequences. So, where did it all start to go downhill? The turning point was arguably his rivalry with Khabib in 2018. Conor was one of a kind when it came to mental warfare. He could get into his opponent's head while being funny and entertaining, but he crossed the line with personal attacks on Khabib's family. He went as far as calling Khabib a backwards cunt because of his religion. And in addition to bringing his family into the mix, Conor said something that didn't sit well with Khabib.
If you put out this fight, I'm gonna love what happens to you, your family, and your team even more on your own soil. I'm gonna love that even more. So you just show up to this fight, and we do this the noble way. Pull out, and then you know what's gonna happen to you back home, kid. So that's all I'll say about that. I'm here for the joy, to enjoy it.
What's gonna happen?
To enjoy it.
The whole build-up to the anticipating fight felt like it was dark and too personal. But there's one thing that no one can hide from, and that's karma. As he would go on to lose the fight in humiliating fashion, and the aftermath of that fight was both chaotic and something that will be remembered for years to come. And both Conor and Khabib were suspended following the post-fight brawl at UFC 229. But this will mark the beginning of Conor's decline, as he was never the same fighter afterwards. Approximately 6 months afterwards, in April 2019, he would get himself into even more controversy. Conor assaulted an elderly man at a pub for refusing a shot of a whiskey brand, Proper 12. And he would face legal consequences and was only fined €1,000. But his action didn't sit well even with his most hardcore fans, tarnishing his image even further. But nonetheless, after a long layoff, Conor finally made his return back at UFC 246, where he defeated Donald Cerrone, winning by TKO in the first round. But despite a successful return at UFC 246, his next 2 fights would be against Dustin Poirier, and for the first time, 2 things would happen. First, we saw a different version of Conor, a friendly and humble, more respectful version of him, and for the first time in his career, Conor would suffer his first TKO loss, to which he didn't take as humbly as he was trying to be. As in the next fight, the old loudmouth Conor was back, and seemingly with a vengeance. But I need you to keep what he said in this clip in mind.
What exactly is that? Do you feel he's changed since before the fight in January? Do you think he's changed?
I don't give a fuck about him, to be honest. It's just how I am. He's a corpse, a dead body, a blank face. It's gonna get his ass whooped and took out on a stretcher.
Conor called himself Mystic Mac, as he was always able to predict his fights. But this time, his word would come back to bite him, as he would be the one that would go out on a stretcher after he broke his leg at the end of the first round of their 3rd fight. And once again, karma came knocking on his door. That injury would put him out of action for almost 3 years. But during his recovery, Conor would exit the USADA drug testing pool and underwent a dramatic physical transformation and putting on an unnatural amount of weight. And dozens of pictures would surface online where you could see his insane physical changes. Not only his body, but even his head shape and physical structure was clearly different when he shaved his beard. He pretty much doubled in size, leading to steroids use speculation, and it's not too far-fetched because his dramatic transformation is quite hard to achieve through natural means alone. Even Derek from More Place More Date made a video acknowledging his transformation.
Now how recent is this or how old is this? I don't actually know, but to go from that to this
that's like fucking 20 to 30 pounds of actual muscle accrued, which is just not gonna happen naturally, in my opinion. And this does not look representative of just, I took time off and I'm focusing on, you know, building my physique back to, you know, be fight ready. Like, he has never looked, in my opinion, resembled this in this dramatic of a fashion. So, like, this is almost to the point where I would think the picture is fake. Like, you know, that's how juicy this guy looks. So,
and this is quite ironic, as at his peak, Conor got offended when Nate Diaz accused him of using steroids. But despite being out of action for almost 3 years, he has been hinting at a comeback fight against Michael Chandler. And the hype was so big that the tickets for the press conference were sold out almost immediately. However, the event was cancelled, and Conor's only response was, "Today's press conference was cancelled due to a series of obstacles outside of our control." But this didn't really come as a surprise to many people, because if you kept up with him, then you would know that just 1 month out for his UFC return, he was seen partying widely, dancing and downing alcohol. But to make things even worse, 2 weeks after the press conference was cancelled, the fight was called off as Conor had to pull out of the fight due to a broken toe. And this would be the first time he ever pulled out of a fight. The Conor that people knew and loved with his anywhere anytime mindset seemed to be a thing of the past, and was clearly no longer there. But this is quite ironic because all the way back in 2016, Conor was set to face Rafael dos Anjos, but he had to pull out due to a foot injury, only to have Conor do the same thing 8 years later, and per classic old Conor, he mocked Rafael for it.
It's always happening. They always pull, they always run, they always make it out like they want it, but really they don't want it. So I was expecting it, you know. I looked at the picture Dos Anjos put up, and it's a bruise. I mean, I heard ice works wonders. What do you want me to say? You just see it. It's a bruise. Ice. Ibuprofen. If I jumped under an X-ray, the doctor slapped me and said, "What are you doing, kid? Get out of here. Stop this."
But it seems like Rafael will get the last laugh as he posted a tweet that said, "It's just a bruise, take some ibuprofen." It's quite funny because Conor was always the one mocking people for pulling out of fights and even calling them pull-out merchant. But to be honest, this was the only time Conor ever pulled out of a fight, so people can't really hate on him for that. But even if he did make his UFC return, I don't think he would have won, because the Conor that was once dedicated to his craft, determined to win, is long gone. And if you were a fan of Conor back then, you'd know how sharp he was with not only his fighting skills, but in his speech. But recently, the difference in Conor's speech is quite worrying, as he went from being able to speak his mind clearly like this.
My father was unaware of what the game was, what the sport was. Before me, there was no Irishman that had succeeded in the UFC. There was no one. I could not look to my mother and father and say, "Look at this Irishman, look at his successful fighting career," because there was no one before me. So I was the first one. I had to convince them what I was going to do.
To not even being able to articulate himself as he once did.
Jake's a consummate professional, 75 movies made. You know, I'm blessed to have entered into the movie alongside him. He was patient with me. He gave me guidance, and I just took it. You know, we had a good rapport on set.
This raised concern about his lifestyle choices, and people speculate it must be the result of him using drugs and partying as widely as he is. And it's honestly quite sad, as he once famously said this.
Conor, you slipped my jab there. I asked you what it was like to party with him. I mean, it was a good answer, but you totally slipped my jab. What's it like to party with him?
Partying is weakness for the soul, my friend, so I try and avoid it.
Although he never denied enjoying life outside the UFC, the old Conor knew how to balance it with discipline and focus. He never let that distract him, and he was locked in whenever it was fight time. But to me, the Conor that we once knew will never come back, as prime Conor had a purpose and the discipline to stay focused. But the current Conor seemed to have lost that drive, as he have achieved everything he ever wanted. And there's 2 clips that I want to show you.
Conor, in February of 2013, we spoke for the first time. You didn't have a car, you didn't have a pot to piss in, all you had were blueberries. Now here you are with the undisputed gold. Enjoy it, my friend. You deserve it, you called it.
Yeah, from nothing to something to everything. So that's where I am right now.
I've lost my mind doing this game, yeah? Like Vincent van Gogh. He dedicated his life to his art and lost his mind in the process. That's happened to me. But fuck it.
and that gold belt is around my waist, and my mother has a big mansion, and my girlfriend has a different car for every day of the week, and my kids have everything they ever want, then it will pay. Then I'm happy I lost my mind. Yeah?
He did exactly what he said, and he's now living a life most people could only ever dreamed of. But despite achieving everything he wanted, I hope one day he will find humility and wisdom in his later years just like Mike Tyson did.